Hello, my name is James Hendry.
And my name's Trishala Naidu.
We're going to be discussing SafariSnaps, Africam's new game which allows you, as a community member, to tag different species as they appear at our Africam cameras. Each species that you see has a unique rarity score based on how frequently it is seen at one of the cameras. The score may differ from how endangered or rare an animal is in the various locations. Now, this is all fun and games. The scoring of each animal shouldn't be taken too seriously, as sometimes we see a rare animal often, and a common animal may not occur on a particular camera. We can't be too pedantic about it. For example, we're very unlikely to see an impala at the Black Eagle Nest. These are our top 10 common animals that you might see just about every day at the Africam waterhole cameras. Some of them are water dependent, but they can move quite far between different waterholes. Some of them are not particularly water dependent, and some of them are just plain small and difficult to see. Starting it off, we've got the giraffe at 22 points. Now, a giraffe is not actually particularly water dependent. They're pretty obvious to see because they are obviously the world's tallest land mammal, but they don't have to drink every single day. So when they do pitch up at the water holes, you'll see them, but that won't be every day.
Next up, we have the Chakma baboon, which will give you 25 points. Now, this will be rowdy when you see them come across the waterhole. Again, they're not totally water dependent. They get a lot of their moisture requirements from the food that they eat, but they will still frequent waterholes if they're in their areas. And then you'll also hear the troop rustling around in the trees and, of course, causing a bit of a ruckus when they come down to the waterhole.
The most common place you'll see them is in the Olifants River, where there is a resident troop that roosts in the trees very near the camera. Next up, we've got the blue wildebeest or blue gnu for 26 points. Now, this is the first animal we've come across that is water dependent but can move big distances. And so they won't always have to drink at one of the water holes where our cameras are. They can move between different water holes.
Next up, another antelope, the greater kudu, a beautiful sight, 27 points. Again, they do get a lot of their moisture requirement from the foliage that they eat because they're browsers. But if they come down to the waterhole, you're going to get yourself some great points, 27, and it's going to be a lovely sight, especially if you see a nice bull.
It does seem that the 27 points you get for a magnificent kudu bull seems a little mean, I think, but they are not an uncommon antelope, and so you will see them relatively frequently coming down to drink, especially during the hotter months. Next up, we have got the Scrubhare. Now, the Scrubhare you'll get 28 points for, and I mean, look, I wouldn't tell the greater kudu that it has been outscored by humble Scrubhare or common Scrubhare, but the reason you'll get 28 points with the Scrubhare is that they will only come down to the water at night, and in fact they don't have to drink. They'll just be hopping about in the shorter grass that surrounds the waterholes.
Next up, we have a Nyala for 30 points. And you will probably see them quite often, particularly at Tembe, where they frequent the cams or the areas around the cams. Again, another one of those larger antelope that don't really need to drink often, but they will if water is available. So there you go. For them, you can get 30 points.
Yeah, Nyala at Tembe are very common, possibly the most common antelope, and a really good place for you to learn the difference between a Nyala bull and a Bushbuck. The Nyala is much larger than the Bushbuck. It's got spiraled horns, and although the Bushbuck does have spirally horns, they're not nearly as spiraled as the Nyalas. The Nyala is a big grey charcoal animal with chestnut socks, and the Bushbuck is a much smaller animal, much browner, and really once you've seen them together, you won't confuse them. So just be careful when you're tagging not to confuse the two. Next up, we have got the Serrated hinged terrapin. Now, this is an animal that is in just about all the water that you can see at our Africam cameras, but it is slightly more difficult to see because it spends most of its day under the water. It's also quite difficult to tell the difference between a serrated hinged terrapin and a marsh terrapin, but in the large water bodies where most of our cameras are situated, you're more than likely to see a serrated hinged terrapin. You'll see them sitting on logs or on rocks or basking even on the backs of hippopotami.
Okay, next up we have the bushbuck. Bushbuck, beautiful, beautiful antelope that we don't get to see too often, at least in the parts that I've guided at, but you can get yourself 35 points if you spot some bushbuck.
Bushbuck often associated with riverine vegetation, and unsurprisingly, the most common place you'll see them on the Africam cameras is the Olifants riverbank. For 38 points, we have got the buffalo. Now, buffalo are extremely water dependent, but much like the wildebeest, they can move between different water sources. They're totally unterritorial. They'll drink at one waterhole one day and then move on to another waterhole the next time they drink.
Top spot of our top 10 common animals, that is the civet. So if you see a civet, you will get yourself 40 points, and you're most likely to see that around Naledi Dam or even Cat Eye and Rosie's pan.
Again, for a civet, they're short animals. They don't want to be knocking about in very thick bush, and the water holes often have nice, tasty things around them for a civet to eat. Eggs from nestling birds, rodents in the shorter grass, and other tasty delights that a carnivorous civet with a Catholic diet would like to sup upon.
Well, those are our top 10 common animals that we see on the Africam cams, but remember there's tons more, so just keep snapping.